The allegations Meghan has made are simply not true. Her account does not reflect what actually happened, and it has led the public to a deeply misleading impression. That version of events has no basis in...
The allegations Meghan has made are simply not true. Her account does not reflect what actually happened, and has led the public to a deeply misleading impression. That version of events has no basis in reality. The offer was placed directly in front of Prince William, sealed in cream paper and marked for his eyes alone. He did not open it. He did not ask what Meghan had promised, demanded, or threatened to reveal. Instead, the prince pushed the envelope back across the table and delivered 6 words that ended years of negotiation. There is nothing left to discuss. Minutes later, the royal family confirmed that the Sussex titles had been formally stripped. William kept his hand beside the envelope as silence settled over the room at Windsor Castle. The Sussex titles, the formal ranks used by Harry and Meghan as Duke and Duchess of Sussex, were not being paused. They were being removed from use. With ceremonial standing, palace recognition, and any expectation of returning under their former status gone. This decision changed identity, access, and history at once. The prince pressed his thumb against the sealed edge, then pulled away. His anger did not appear in raised words or a slammed fist. It appeared in restraint. Years of accusations, interviews, grievances, and failed talks had brought him to a point where reading the proposal felt like reopening a wound the family could no longer survive. A documented account prepared by the palace secretary recorded that he never broke the seal. Meghan waited far from Windsor, convinced the offer would force negotiation. She had included concessions she had resisted before, expecting those promises to create hesitation. Instead, her phone displayed a message with no counteroffer or invitation to continue. Her confidence collapsed because rejection was painful, but silence was worse. It told her the palace no longer believed discussion could change the outcome. The door opened moments later. A senior courtier entered carrying a red folder and placed it beside the untouched envelope. The folder contained the final announcement approved for release. Its timing exposed the truth. The family had prepared for refusal before Meghan's offer arrived. Charles had given William one last power, the authority to pause the announcement if he believed trust could be restored. The future king chose not to use it. William placed 2 fingers on the envelope and slid it toward the chair opposite him. The palace secretary opened the folder, yet someone inside the royal household had already read Meghan's terms, and one demand buried in those pages explained why the prince believed the offer was not reconciliation. It was leverage. That hidden condition would expose the private wounds of 4 people who could no longer agree on what family loyalty meant. Behind the official announcement were 4 people carrying 4 different versions of betrayal. William believed he was protecting the crown from another cycle of public conflict. Harry saw the decision as proof that his brother had finally chosen the institution over blood. Meghan viewed the rejection as a deliberate humiliation, and Charles, seated alone with the announcement before him, understood that stripping the titles would not merely alter royal records, it would permanently redefine his family. William carried the heaviest contradiction. He was Harry's brother, but he was also the heir, the person expected to inherit the throne and protect the monarchy's future stability. That role forced him to see every unresolved dispute as a danger waiting to return. He remembered standing beside Harry during childhood ceremonies, walking behind their mother's coffin, and facing private grief together. Those memories hurt, yet they also made each failed attempt at reconciliation feel like another betrayal of what the brothers once shared. Harry felt the loss differently. The Sussex titles were not merely formal words placed before 2 names. They were royal ranks connecting him and Meghan to the crown, strengthening their public identity, and preserving part of the status they kept after leaving official duties. To him, removing them meant the family was not simply closing a door. It was erasing the last official sign that he still belonged to the institution he had been born into. Meghan read the rejection as humiliation. Her final offer promised fewer public attacks, limited cooperation, and greater control over future disclosures. But a documented palace review revealed what the proposal did not contain. There was no direct apology, no full admission that trust had been broken, and no unconditional promise to keep future family conversations private. She believed compromise should be enough. William believed trust required something deeper. Charles sat beside a cold fireplace, while Camilla watched him from across the room. The king read the final notice twice, removed his glasses, and placed them beside the page. Relief touched him for only a moment, then grief returned. "Once this is signed, they cannot return as they were," he quietly said. The queen consort did not interrupt because she understood the truth inside those words. The monarch was ending uncertainty, but the father was losing another piece of his son. The crisis did not begin with the envelope at Windsor. It began 3 months earlier inside a private reception room after a memorial service, when Meghan asked William for something no one expected. With the doors closed and the family still dressed in mourning, she requested a formal role in an upcoming Royal Foundation initiative, one that would have restored her name to palace documents. William did not answer immediately. He simply looked toward Harry and realized the request had been planned. William still carried the emotion of the service when Meghan placed a proposal before him. The memorial at St. George's Chapel had been intended as a private moment of respect, not a stage for negotiation. A Royal Foundation initiative meant a charity project publicly connected to the monarchy and supported through palace approval. An advisory role would have returned Harry and Meghan to official documents, giving them royal visibility without requiring them to resume full duties or accept direct palace control. Meghan spoke carefully, but the request was precise. She wanted the Sussex name included on foundation material, along with formal recognition of the couple's advisory position. Harry remained beside her, quiet but attentive. The proposal would allow them to influence a royal project, while remaining outside the rules governing working members of the family. That imbalance mattered because William believed authority could not be separated from responsibility. Without weakening the institution he would one day inherit. The prince felt cornered. Grief still hung over the room, and he believed the timing had been chosen to make refusal appear cold. He turned toward Harry, expecting his brother to soften the demand or admit the moment was wrong. The Duke did neither. He stayed seated and said the proposal deserved serious consideration. Those words wounded William more than Meghan's request, because they confirmed that Harry had known what was coming. Meghan then unfolded a prepared page and placed it on the table. A documented account later entered into a private palace. Briefing recorded that the wording repeatedly referred to them as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Those titles were not decorative phrases. They were formal royal ranks carrying public weight and institutional meaning. The language proved that restoring their status was not a side effect of the request. It was one of its central goals. William lifted the page, read 3 lines, then folded it once. He placed it beneath a silver paperweight and looked directly at Harry. "Do not ask me for this again," he said. The warning was not emotional theater. It was a boundary. He told his brother that any further attempt to claim royal authority without accepting royal responsibility would force the family to review the titles themselves. The room fell silent, but the conflict did not end there. Meghan would make the request again, and when she finally faced William without aides or ceremony between them, loyalty and power would collide without restraint. There were no lawyers, no press advisors, and no carefully arranged photographs when William and Meghan finally faced each other. Only a long table separated them inside a secured Windsor room. She arrived prepared to negotiate. He arrived prepared to listen once. But within minutes, the discussion turned from reconciliation to accusation, and the prince understood that Meghan's offer was not designed to rebuild trust. It was designed to secure guarantees before giving anything in return. Meghan entered with a written proposal, while Harry met Charles in another part of the castle. The secured room meant a private space protected from staff movement and outside access, chosen so the conversation could remain within the family. Once the introductions ended, every aide left. That mattered because neither side could later blame an advisor for the words that followed. Whatever happened now would belong entirely to her and William. She offered less public criticism, silence on selected family matters, and attendance at a small number of ceremonial events tied to the crown's public role. In return, Meghan wanted the Sussex title protected, their security position recognized, and their official connection to the monarchy preserved. She described the terms as compromise. William heard conditions. Meghan tightened her hands around the edge of her chair. "You are not only punishing us," she said. "You are punishing our children for a conflict they did not create." Her voice remained calm, but anger pressed beneath every word. She believed removing the titles would cut Archie and Lilibet away from part of their identity. The prince understood the fear, Yet he believed that identity could not become protection from accountability. William answered without raising his voice. He said leaving royal duty had not caused the deepest wound. The damage came when private grief, family arguments, and moments of weakness repeatedly became public material. Trust, he told her, was not a contract that could be restored through carefully traded promises. Meghan accused him of using pain to justify permanent exclusion. He accused her of offering silence only after disclosure had become costly. Then the hidden demand surfaced. Meghan wanted a written guarantee that neither she nor Harry would face future restrictions on commercial projects referring to their royal history. A commercial project meant paid media, publishing, branding, or entertainment work built around their public identity. William closed the folder immediately. The condition confirmed his greatest fear. The Sussex name would remain commercially powerful while operating beyond palace control. Meghan leaned forward. "You cannot erase what we are." William rose slowly. "No, but we can decide what the crown is required to recognize." She warned him that he did not hold the final authority. The prince agreed and turned toward the closed door. Charles was waiting in the next room with the constitutional file already prepared. The formal papers allowing the king to make the separation permanent. Charles did not celebrate when the final papers reached his desk. He stared at the royal insignia printed above Harry's name and remembered the day that title had been granted. Now, the same institution that had bestowed it was asking him to approve its removal. Around him stood legal advisors, constitutional officers, and trusted courtiers. Yet when the room fell silent, the decision belonged to one man, a father required to act as king against his own son. Charles opened the red box and found the completed title removal framework waiting inside. The red box was a secure case used to carry important state and royal documents directly to the monarch. The file had been reviewed by legal advisors, senior household officials, and members of the family who believed the Sussex titles could no longer remain in official use. Every page carried the weight of finality because the decision would affect public rank, palace access, and future royal recognition. William's refusal had removed the last internal obstacle. The prince could not sign the papers, but his decision not to pause them carried enormous force. As heir, he believed continued uncertainty would produce the same crisis again and again. Charles understood that fear, and he also understood that his elder son had been forced to defend boundaries the king had delayed setting. The monarch asked everyone to leave except Camilla. The queen consort remained silent until the door closed. Charles admitted that Harry might remember only the punishment, not the private calls, attempted meetings, and repeated chances that came before it. He feared his son would see cruelty where the father still felt grief. Camilla did not answer with anger. She told him that refusing to decide had already wounded both brothers, leaving William to carry responsibility, while Harry continued hoping the limits might move. Charles turned another page. The declaration removed ceremonial precedents, which meant the couple would no longer hold their former place in official royal order. It ended palace representation, blocked title usage in formal settings, and closed any expectation that the Sussex rank would later be restored. The king added one final mercy. Harry would still be publicly acknowledged as a son, and as family by birth, even after the institutional privileges disappeared. The room tightened around the decision. Charles signed the declaration, but the pen remained touching the paper for a long second. "This ends the title, not the blood," he whispered. Camilla reached toward him, yet he closed the red box before her hand arrived. The gesture was not rejection. It was the instinct of a man trying to contain pain before it escaped. Charles refused to let a secretary deliver the news. He ordered a direct call to Harry and asked William to remain in the room. The brothers would not be allowed to hide behind advisors when the final words were spoken, and when Harry answered, every legal phrase vanished. Only rejection remained. Harry listened without interrupting until Charles reached the sentence, confirming that the titles were gone. Then the line fell silent. No argument, no accusation, only the faint sound of a chair moving across the floor. When he finally spoke, he did not address the king. He asked whether William was in the room. The pause that followed gave him the answer, and the Duke understood that his brother had not merely accepted the decision. He had helped complete it. Charles kept his voice controlled as he explained what would happen next. The Sussex titles had been formally stripped, and the palace would announce the decision through its official channels within minutes. Official channels meant the statements and communications released in the royal family's name. Future public references would use Harry's personal name rather than his ducal rank, while Meghan would no longer be formally styled to the Sussex title. The words sounded cold because they were designed to leave no space for confusion. Harry rose so quickly that his chair struck the floor behind him. Disbelief came first, then anger. He accused William of rejecting the offer without reading its full terms and told Charles that the monarchy had chosen punishment over family. The king absorbed the accusation without raising his voice. He answered that family could not survive when every private boundary became negotiable and every painful conversation carried the risk of becoming public. William finally took the call. The prince confirmed that he had never opened the envelope because the face-to-face meeting had already exposed the conditions behind it. He had heard the demand for commercial freedom, protected status, and continued use of royal history without palace control. Harry said the written proposal contained concessions too. His brother replied that concessions offered only in exchange for guarantees were not trust. They were leverage. Harry ended the call with no farewell. Meghan received the palace statement moments later on a phone screen. She held it with both hands, read the first paragraph once, then returned the beginning and read it again. The sentence removing the title seemed to drain every prepared response from her. She lowered herself onto the edge of a sofa and said nothing. The silence lasted until Harry noticed a sealed copy of the offer lying nearby. He lifted it and looked toward Meghan, anger leaving his face, replaced by doubt. That night, there were no advisors left to blame and no royal titles left to defend. Harry and Meghan sat opposite each other with the rejected offer between them, finally accepting the truth they had resisted for years. Some divisions cannot be healed by negotiation, only ended by a decision.